Marston's. The radio station you're listening to now.
Good morning. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. Great to have you along this morning. All right. There we go.
The Doctor of Discernment is on the air.
I love the Greg Belfrage Show.
I've been listening to you for years, Greg. Thanks for all you do and keeping us informed.
You sound a little taller on radio.
Dispensing a daily dose of common sense. No prescription required.
Americans love a winner and will not tolerate a loser. Americans play to win all the time. I don't believe in the no-win scenario.
This is the Greg.
Good morning, my friend. The marketplace of ideas is open. Welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show on this Monday, January 27th. Just a lot of big things happening. This is the top story at foxnews.com this morning, and you just heard it on Fox News Radio. Donald Trump signing an executive order to reinstate service members who got the boot from the military because they didn't want the COVID-19 shot. They didn't want to get it, so they will be reinstated, returned to their prior rank, provided with back pay and benefits. So the White House says that just 43 of the over 8,000 service members who were discharged over their vaccination status opted to return to the military. Just 43. So of the rest, again, they'll be reinstated, so on. That's a big story this morning. And in fact, Peter Ducey breaking that story at foxnews.com. So not a lot of additional details. It's only a couple of paragraphs available at foxnews.com. Number one story this morning at the New York Post, front page of the New York Post. No tariff in town. Colombia's president buckling over Donald Trump's trade war threat, offers presidential plane for deportation flights. So that's the story. Let's look into what's going on. Initially, Colombia was, well, we're not going to accept these people. The United States sending folks from Colombia who are not citizens of the United States, so on. They're migrants, illegal migrants, sending them back to Colombia. Colombia saying, we're not going to accept them. And Donald Trump says, oh, all right, how about a 25% tariff? 25% tariff, and he's saying effective immediately. There's a 25% tariff, and with and if this doesn't change, 50% tariff. And I have to at Colombia just immediately then. I mean, it was that thing was over. I mean, before it really got underway. And I have to laugh because there's a piece at thehill.com this morning. So now the Colombian president has ordered an increase of import tariffs on U.S. goods. So now Colombia responding, we're going to raise tariffs on U.S. goods. The problem for Colombia is that they export a lot more to the United States than they import from the United States. You know what I mean? In other words, you've got the Colombia sending far more goods to the U.S. than the U.S. is currently exporting to Colombia. So they're saying, well, we're going to raise our tariff. Yeah, that's just, and started immediately backing down. That the issue, this is what Colombia was saying, the issue was that these are military flights. And the military crew somehow, this is, they're being disrespectful then of the Colombians who are on board the planes. Therefore, we want them on commercial planes. We don't want them on military planes. We want them on commercial planes. And I'm like, really? All right. Okay. So that's the big, as long as it's on, don't tell me that's not an effort to try to save face, because that's the only way. I mean, that's the way I perceive it. It's an effort on the part of the Colombia to try to save face. They wanted to stand up to Donald Trump, and Donald Trump just throws the twister punch, man. Like Popeye, boom, throws the twister punch. And just like Bluto, these people don't know how to react. They're just like, your head's swimming. You're just like, what happened? This is just absolutely incredible, I think, as you watch this happen. So Donald Trump's press secretary said last night, government of Colombia has agreed to all of President Trump's terms, including the unrestricted acceptance of all illegal aliens from Colombia returned from the United States, including on U.S. military aircraft, without limitation or delay. So the 11th said the tariffs would have placed 25% tariffs on all incoming Colombian goods and then raised to 50% in the span of a week. So it was an immediate 25% tariff. And if you're not playing ball a week from now, we're going to raise it to 50%. And they crumbled. Seriously, they just absolutely crumbled. Levitt said Trump would maintain visa restrictions on Colombian officials and enhance customs inspections of goods from the country until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. So in other words, they're not fooling around. And they're making it very, very clear to these other countries that what's going to happen if they're going to defy the United States. Trump said on True Social, these measures are just beginning. We will not allow the Colombian government to violate its legal obligations with regard to the acceptance and return of the criminals they force into the United States. Also, Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, announced he was authorizing the visa restrictions on Colombian government officials and their families who were responsible for the interference of U.S. Repatriation flight operations. And he said these restrictions will continue, and this is Marco Rubio now, until Colombia meets its obligations to accept the return of its own citizens. This is what strength looks like. I mean, seriously. You never saw this during the Biden administration, but just a note, especially to Democrats, this is what strength looks like. This is what following the law looks like. And you get a lot of people whining. It's just, and it gets the voices of complaints. And I've said this for a long time about the Democrat Party. One of their problems is they want to bellyache and moan about everything. They're bellyaching and they are at, the old joke about turning it up to 11, the Democrats, that's their reaction to everything is at 11. That's where they start. They got nowhere to go because they're already shrieking and enraged over all of this stuff. And it's just absolutely incredible to watch. So, as I mentioned, the president of Colombia yesterday ordering an increase on imports on goods from the United States. But again, the issue for Colombia is they export a lot more to the United States than they import. So, also, House Speaker Mike Johnson made a statement yesterday. He said, Colombia and all nations should be on notice. Congress is fully prepared to pass sanctions and other measures against those who do not fully cooperate or follow through on requirements to accept their citizens who are illegally in the United States, he said. President Trump is putting America first, just like he said he would. And Congress will implement policies that reinforce his agenda. Wow. So you've got strong pushback from Donald Trump, from members of Congress who are reacting to that. That's a big story this morning. Also, we had the Vice President, J.D. Vance, who was on CBS's Face the Nation yesterday. And there were a number of issues that came up during the program. The Margaret Brennan, so she immediately is hitting him over the issue of prices. And you campaigned on lowering prices for consumers. We've seen all these executive orders. Which one lowers prices? And you and I talked about this last week. And this is what's just absolutely incredible. All of these executive orders. So once again, you have the Democrats who create this incredible mess. And then because Donald Trump has not cleaned it up fast enough, she's asking these questions on Friday. So Donald Trump had not even been in a president for a week yet. You know, which one of these lowers prices? You know what this shows to me, again, is just how out of touch the legacy media is with what's going on, and how much they just hate Donald Trump. I mean, seriously, this is just, so you campaigned on it. Yeah, you campaigned on a lot of things. And I didn't expect that there was going to be immediate. He's not like a genie out of a bottle, right? Where he is immediately granting wishes and boom, hey, everything's changed. I mean, so this is just, and J.D. Vance, the vice president, really standing his ground in this interview with it's Margaret Brennan. You know, he said, well, first of all, we have done a lot. There have been a number of executive orders that have caused already jobs to start coming back into our country, which is a core part of lowering prices, he said. More capital investment, more job creation in our economy. It's one of the things that's going to drive down prices for all consumers, but also raise wages so that people can afford to buy the things they need. So grocery prices aren't going to come down. Seriously? That's what, Margaret? That's what you take away from what he just said? See, this is why it's just so infuriating for me, too. These people are just, oh. So also, he talked about talking about the fact that recruitment to U.S. Armed Forces starting to pick up. And this is, we had Pete Hegseth now, who has been named the Secretary of Defense. I know there are a lot of questions about Hegseth. Let's wait and see what kind of job he does. I mean, lots of cries of him being incompetent coming from people who are themselves incompetent. So I don't get all that shook up. I really don't. Let's give Hegseth time. And so Vance said, with the election of President Trump, he said, you have the Army missing recruitment goals by tens of thousands of soldiers. And already recruitment is starting to pick up because Pete Hegseth is fundamentally a warfighter's leader at the Department of Defense. He's a guy who sees not through the perspective of the generals or the bureaucrats. He looks at things through the perspective of the men and women that we send off to fight in our wars. So he's saying recruiting is, with Donald Trump returning to the White House, is already on the rise. And also, as we talk about Hegseth, it was the vice president who broke the tie on that. It was a 50-50 split. 3 Republicans who voted against Hegseth: Senator Mitch McConnell, Senator Susan Collins of Maine, and Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska voting against. And one of the stories that trending over the weekend was Senator McConnell trying to, defending his vote against Hegseth. I'll let you decide for yourself what you. Also, there's a piece at PJ Media about J.D. Vance schooling Margaret Brennan on the reality of inflation. So that's a big story. Then there's a lot this morning. You also had Tom Homan, the border czar, who was on ABC's This Week with Martha Raddatz, talking about the Trump administration, their focus on arresting illegal immigrants with criminal records. Holman, though, made it clear that enforcement efforts will extend beyond this group. We talked about this last week. He said, if you're in the country illegally, you're on the table, because it's not okay, to violate the laws of this country. You've got to remember, every time you enter this country illegally, you violated a crime under Title 8, the United States Code 1325. It's a crime. So if you're in a country illegally, you've got a problem. And that's why I'm hoping those who are in the country illegally, who have not been ordered removed by a federal judge, should leave. We'll talk about that in more detail, because that's a big story. We'll talk about it in more detail throughout the morning. Also, we had the AFC and the NFC championships over the weekend. Kansas City Chiefs securing a victory over the Buffalo Bills. Final score 32-29. So that means the Chiefs will appear for their third consecutive Super Bowl appearance. And then over in the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles dominated the Washington Commanders. They ended the game with a 55-23 victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. And there are more stories that are trending regarding that this morning. So I'll get into additional details coming up here shortly as we get into Belf's News Gallery. Also, with Governor Kristi Noem resigning, being sworn in as the head of the Department of Homeland Security over the weekend. That happened on Saturday. So she was sworn in and as resigned as governor of South Dakota, which means Lieutenant Governor Larry Roden will now become the state's 34th governor of South Dakota. And there will be a public swearing-in ceremony coming up on February 8th on the Capitol State Rotunda. That ceremony will be open to the public, and then it will be held with a Capitol Ball that evening in the Rotunda. But Larry Roden will be sworn in today at 11 a.m. Central Time. So at 11 a.m. Central is when Larry Roden will be sworn in officially as South Dakota's new governor. Just a lot of things. And Senator Thune, Senate Majority Leader Thune in the U.S. Senate, kept his promise about working the Senate more often. And you saw that over the weekend, again, with Kristi Noem being approved and moving forward on that, because that happened on Saturday. Other stories that are out there this morning, for those of you especially in Minnesota, been a lot of things that are going on with the Minnesota State Legislature. We talked about this a little bit last week. And so a judge siding with Democrats. Oh, this is a shock. You've got a judge in Minnesota siding with Democrats in Minnesota. I don't think those of you in Minnesota are going to be surprised by that. So, ruling the State House needs a majority of all seats to do business. So the Minnesota Supreme Court ruled that 68 of 134 House members are a quorum, meaning that the 67 Republicans are not enough to make the House move. So Minnesota and their legislature in Minnesota remains in a quagmire, I think, for the moment, which is, again, it's been really, you watch what's been going on in Minnesota. it's really kind of, it must be infuriating, I think, for those who want to see their government at work on behalf of the people of the state. Just absolutely crazy. Also, while we're talking about Minnesota, Target, as you know, was based in Minnesota. So Target announced on Friday that they are canceling several diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. So that follows the executive order that Donald Trump signed last week, asserting that DEI programs violate the civil rights laws of the nation. So now you've got Target, who is joining a number of other companies: Walmart, Meta, McDonald's, John Deere. John Deere was moving in that direction already anyway. Molson Coors, Tractor Supply have scaled back or eliminated their DEI goals in recent months. However, some companies are refusing to do so. Costco, Apple, they are going to continue with their DEI programs, but the CEO of Target said the murder of George Floyd had motivated him to expand the company's DEI efforts. And so at this point, and there's been a lot of pushback over those DEI efforts. And that's a look at the big stories this morning. Hope you had a wonderful weekend. Nice to have you along. 627, clear skies, 19. And you're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
Nights 5 to 8. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires. That gives you more tire in automotive store. Borders are Tom Holman. He is. I thought about it. I think a great analogy for those of you who are Marvel fans. You know of Thor, of course, and Mjolnir, Thor's hammer, Mjolnir. Tom Holman is like Donald Trump's Mjolnir. I mean, wow. The guy is absolutely incredible. All righty.
Towns all across South Dakota. It's your banker, the kids' Little League coach, and your brother-in-law, who are the firefighters, EMTs, and first responders. So when you drink and drive, the whole town will know it, because they're the first on the scene, and maybe the last faces you see. Do the first responders in your town a favor. Volunteer to be the designated driver. You be the hero, and give them the night off. Brought to you by the South Dakota Office of Highway Safety, the South Dakota Broadcasters Association, and this station.
When disaster strikes, food supply.
Oh, we haven't talked about this. Donald Trump considering reassigning 88,000 IRS agents to the border. He talked about that over the weekend. Isn't it amazing just the number of things that Donald Trump gets moving on? And, the thing is about having strong people in place to carry out the things Trump's been talking about. And you need that. And I think, by contrast, you look at Joe Biden and what we had and what was going on in this country under his administration, just a far cry, such a night and day difference.
Go to mypatriotsupply.com now to get $50 off your 4-week emergency food kit. That's mypatriotsupply.com.
A very mild forecast. Our high today, 46 degrees. A partly cloudy sky, but a west wind at 20 to 35 and gusty. Forecast low tonight, right around 23. And then tomorrow, warming to near 50 in the afternoon.
50!
Wind 15 to 30. Temperatures in the mid.
We'll take it.
Wednesday. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV.
And in Sioux Falls at 6:30, clear skies and 19 currently at Kello. Joe Bowman is in the Kello.com News Center. Kristi Noem got sworn in as the new Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Joe will have details on that, as well as Larry Roden being sworn in coming up a little later today. Details ahead.
More than 8,000 service members discharged for refusing a COVID vaccine are getting back pay and another invitation to come back.
The White House says this redress is long overdue, calling the dismissal of military members who refused the COVID vaccine wrongful. This new executive order, given exclusively to our Peter Ducey this morning, directs Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to reinstate all members of the military who were discharged for rejecting the COVID vaccine, and they will receive full pay and benefits.
Fox's Madeline Rivera. After a delay in reopening the routes, thousands of Palestinians are making their way home, many finding nothing left.
Today, those Gazans are starting to trudge north to see what's left of where they once lived. This delay is because Hamas failed to release civilian hostage Arbel Yehud at the weekend. They've now agreed to do so this coming Thursday, along with 2 others.
Fox's Jonathan Savage. America's listening to Fox News.
Kello News Time, 6:31. I'm Joe Bowman in the Kello.com News Center.
That I will well and faithfully discharge
that I will well and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office on which I'm about to enter.
the duties on the office of which I am about to enter.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
That was Justice Clarence Thomas swearing in Kristi Noem as the new Secretary of Homeland Security. The Senate voted to confirm Noem by a vote of 59 to 34 on Saturday. 6 Democratic senators joined Republicans in voting to approve President Trump's nomination. Noem resigned the office of South Dakota governor minutes after being confirmed. Lieutenant Governor Larry Roden will be sworn in today at 11 a.m. to take over as South Dakota's 34th governor. A new bill on surrendering newborns is being deliberated in Pierre. The Baby Gabriel Bill, in honor of the baby found in Sioux Falls last summer, will amend the state's current safe haven laws. It would allow parents to surrender babies in a climate-controlled baby box instead of having to face anyone. Local hospitals and organizations like Right to Live have already indicated they would fund these devices. 2024 was another record year for South Dakota's tourism industry. Tourism Secretary Jim Hagan says the annual study shows increasing visitor numbers and spending in the state.
Welcomed 14.9 million visitors. That's an all-time record. And those visitors spent $5 billion, a little over $5 billion when they came to South Dakota in 2024.
Last year, the South Dakota tourism industry provided jobs for about 59,000 people and generated nearly $400 million in state and local tax revenues. And in sports, the Jackrabbits dominated the Interstate Series on Saturday as both SDSU men's and women's basketball teams rolled past rival USD Coyotes. The men defended home court with a 90-71 win, and the Lady Jacks took care of business in Vermilion, 77-59. From the Kello.com News Center, I'm Joe Bowman.
The news never stops. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
Weather brought to you by Intech Cleaning and Restoration. If you need it clean, call the Intech team. IntechClean.com.
Partly cloudy skies today and a very mild forecast. Our high temperature 46 with a west wind at 20 to 35. Forecast low tonight dropping back to 23 under a mainly clear sky. And then for tomorrow, warming up to 50 degrees in the afternoon. A west wind at 15 to 30. From the Storm Center at Kettleland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens.
What was that?
I just want to bring up a point here.
This is where to go when you've got something to say.
You have to tell these people what they want to know.
Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
On his last night in office, President Biden lamented that Facebook had abandoned its practice of fact-checking. And now the truth is coming out. Meta's fact-checking didn't work in the first place. I'm Ken Commando for Oracle. Cut your current cloud bill in half. Move to Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. See if your company qualifies at oracle.com/Ken. Mark Zuckerberg has admitted that, under the guise of fact-checking, the old White House pressured Facebook into censoring views and opinions. Most of it concerned COVID posts in opposition to the official government positions. But new research shows, even when fact-checking was at its height, it failed 85% of the time to flag posts that were clearly Russian, Chinese, and Iranian disinformation narratives. So even while censoring, foreign disinformation spread. Use social media to vent, but it's never legitimate news. Stay up to date on all things digital with my newsletter at getkim.com. Even if you think it's a bit overhyped, AI is suddenly everywhere, from self-driving cars to molecular medicine to business efficiency. If it's not in your industry yet, it's coming fast. But AI needs a lot of speed and computing power. So how do you compete without costs just spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. It's a blazing fast and secure platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, plus all of your AI and machine learning workloads. OCI costs 50% less for computing and 80% less for networking. Thousands of businesses have already upgraded. Oracle is offering to cut your current cloud bill in half if you move to OCI. Offer ends March 31st, 2025. See if your company qualifies for this special offer at oracle.com/Kim. That's oracle.com/Kim. Oracle.com/Kim. Oracle.com/Kim.
The Kim Commando Show, live Saturday mornings at 9. Kello News Talk 1320 107.9.
The Kello Hotline is sponsored by Tires, with 2 locations to make sure you have the proper traction this winter.
We live in a world of uncertainty where it's become difficult to know who we can count on. But one thing we can all agree on is that we need a good night's sleep every day. For 30 years, Comfort King has been focused on building the world's best mattress and helping friends, family, neighbors, and you sleep better. At Comfort King, we believe in American ingenuity and craftsmanship. We believe in making products that last a long time. When it's time for your next bed, rest assured that you can trust Comfort King.
All right, you said bye-bye to big government, and you want limited government. You voted for that. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you are still using the big carriers, Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, I ask, why are you doing that? Because my cell phone company, Pure Talk, a veteran-owned company, gives you the exact same service. They use the same cell towers. You get the same 5G network. You get better customer service, and they're based here in the U.S., and you pay half the price for the exact same thing. And that's right. There's simply no need to spend $85, $100 a month per person on your wireless bill. Not when you can get unlimited talk, text, 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot for just $35 a month. And by the way, the average family of 4 saves about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk. Make the switch. You simply dial pound 250. You say the keyword save now. Do it now. You save an additional 50% off your first month. That's pound 250, keyword save now, from our friends at Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
Weather brought to you by the Window Shop of Mitchell, offering custom windows starting at $99 a month.
A very mild forecast. Our high today, 46 degrees. A partly cloudy sky, but a west wind at 20 to 35 and gusty. Forecast low tonight, right around 23. And then tomorrow, warming to near 50 in the afternoon. A west wind 15 to 30. Temperatures in the mid-40s on Wednesday. From the Storm Center at Kendallland TV, I'm meteorologist Brian Karstens.
Oh! At 6:38, we've got clear skies, 19 currently at Kello. Good morning and welcome to the Greg Belfrage Show. It's great to have you along this morning. One of the big stories this morning is Donald Trump threatening tariffs on Colombian imports, and they immediately gave in to the demands from the United States. And so I asked you on Facebook this morning, what do you think of this? You think this is smart diplomacy? So if you've got comments regarding that you'd like to share, join us on the Greg Belfrage Show page at Facebook.
What's trending now?
Add them on Facebook.
Let the tweeting begin. The hashtag does that.
Well, as I was just mentioning, Donald Trump smacking Colombia with a 25% tariff, other sanctions after they had refused 2 repatriation flights. And Donald Trump said 25%. And if within a week they are not accepting these folks back, those tariffs will go up to 50%. And they immediately backed down on it. And there was some nonsense. I think that it was, the issue was that they were being flown on military flights rather than being flown commercially. The president of Colombia wanted them to be sent, not via military airplanes. The suggestion was that they were being mistreated then on these military planes, so they wanted them sent back on commercial air flights, and none of that happened. So again, Colombia initially refusing to accept the deportation flights using military aircraft. So then Donald Trump, Donald Trump just doesn't play around. And that's what I think a number of these countries are used to. They're used to playing around. They're playing childish games. And Donald Trump just refuses to participate, right? He's like, okay, 25% tariff. And if you don't come around within a week, 50% tariff. Boy, that'll get your attention in a big hurry. So Colombia agreed to accept the deportation flights, including those on the military aircraft. See, I think it was all, their refusal was all about, well, we don't like these military, because Donald Trump hits back at you, right? Okay, you got to respond, and you got to get out of this in some way. You got to find a way out, right? So you say, well, we just don't like these military flights and the way they're being treated on these military planes, and we'd prefer that they are coming back for, via commercial flights. Oh yeah, should it be first class? We make sure they get a movie while they're, what is this? This is such, all of this just defies common sense. And I think really what it is, Colombia is trying to save face. Donald Trump hits them hard, and they're trying to save face. Also, Donald Trump was in Las Vegas on Saturday, talked about cutting taxes on tips, which was one of his big campaign pledges. And Trump said a few months from now, when I sign our new tax cut into law, we're going to deliver for the tip earning men and women who make it all work. It's going to be something very special, I think, for you. It's going to be a big difference. We're going to have a lot of support when we go before Congress very soon to get that passed, Trump said. After 4 long years of a government that always put you last, they put America last, they put you last, they put everybody last that was associated with us, you once again have a president who's putting our workers first, putting our families first, and above all, putting America first. And we're going to keep putting America first. Just absolutely incredible. So Trump leaning into this during his speech, and he said, we're going to get it for you. No tax on tips, Trump said. Also, there's some controversy surrounding Donald Trump's firing of 17 independent watchdogs at various federal agencies on Friday. And again, these are inspectors general. And one of the terminated inspectors general said it's a widespread massacre. Whoever Trump puts in now will be viewed as loyalists, and that undermines the entire system. So Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley said he feared that Trump's action may violate federal law. He says it requires the president to give 30 days notice to Congress of his intent to fire any independent watchdog. That's apparently what Grassley told the Associated Press. He released a statement. He said, there may be good reason the IGs were fired. We need to know if that's so. I'd like further explanation from President Trump. Regardless, the 30-day detailed notice of removal that the law demands was not provided to Congress. So I expect we're going to be hearing, and of course on the left, it's shrieking and what else is new. Got it turned up to 11 all of the time. Their reaction, their response to everything, it's You know, and I've got to tell you, and you will think less of me for saying this, and that's okay because I know this. I'm not proud of this. It's so great watching these people melt down. I just had the best time watching the left melt down. It just what a nice change. Well, freedom prevails throughout the country. It's just great. Okay, also, Donald Trump has outlined a plan for peace in the Middle East by moving more than 1 million people out of Gaza and into Jordan and Egypt. This is a story from the Daily Mail, and he was visiting with a reporter aboard the presidential, jet Air Force One over the weekend. And Trump said, "You're talking about a 1.5 million people, and we just clean out that whole thing." So the Daily Mail says it was unclear if he meant move everyone out, but the idea will be immediately controversial, stoking Arab fears of a plot to give Palestinian land to Israel. So we'll see. But Trump said he had a phone call with the king of Jordan. This was over the weekend. And Trump asked him to take in more Palestinian refugees from the region. He said, over the centuries, it's had many, many conflicts. And I don't know, something has to happen, he said. So the Daily Mail did like a 20-minute question and answer session with Donald Trump on Air Force One. And he said it's literally a demolition site. Almost everything is demolished and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing at a different location where they can maybe live in peace for a change. You can find that complete story at thedailymail.com. Also, the Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to freeze several pending cases on student loans and the environment. They did this on Friday. This was President Biden's student loan bailouts. You'll remember we talked about those at length. So the Supreme Court is expected to hear oral arguments for these cases in March or April. But Trump's DOJ requested that the high court stop all of the written brief deadlines and put these things on indefinite hold. Also, North Korea over the weekend conducted a strategic cruise missile test, according to their state media. So Kim Jong-un oversaw the test, and you wonder if this is just North Korea flexing their muscles and in part wondering how Donald Trump will respond. I think Donald Trump will respond to North Korea in the same way that he has previously, in the same way we just saw him respond to Colombia, I think. So we'll see. House Speaker Mike Johnson has invited Donald Trump to address a joint session of the Congress coming up March 4th for the State of the Union speech. So Speaker Johnson said it was his distinct honor and great privilege to extend the invitation to Donald Trump to share his America First vision. And one can only imagine what nonsense we're going to see on March 4th. And I don't mean from Trump, I mean from liberal members of Congress. We'll get the usual say, refusing to attend. That's all right. Okay, don't go. If it offends your sensibilities, by all means, don't go. Also, J.D. Vance, during an interview with Margaret Brennan on Face the Nation over the weekend, Brennan argued that U.S. immigration policy should be different from the rest of the world, because America is a unique country. And Vance, I think you're going to appreciate what he was saying here. He was talking about Donald Trump's desire to get rid of birthright citizenship for those who illegally enter the country, for the purpose then of coming to the U.S. and having a child who's then automatically a U.S. citizen. And we know that a number of illegals do that for that very reason. And so Vice President Vance said, it's a very basic principle in American immigration law that if you want to become an American citizen and you've done it the right way, and the American people in their collective wisdom have welcomed you into our national community, then you become a citizen. But temporary residents, people who are coming in here, whether legally or illegally, and don't plan to stay, their children should not become American citizens. I don't know any country that does that or why we would be different. And Brendan said, well, this is a country founded by immigrants. And this is a unique country, she says. And he said, this is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world. No country says that temporary visitors, their children, will be given complete access to the benefits and blessings of citizenship. And of course, he's absolutely correct. But good luck trying to make that case with the legacy media. Also, the CIA has changed its assessment on the origins of COVID-19. And John Ratcliffe, who is the new director of the CIA, they released an assessment on the origins of COVID-19, and I don't think you're going to find this as a surprise. Analysts are saying, yeah, we believe it was leaked from the lab in China. It was the Wuhan lab in China. It leaked from there, and we hardly a surprise. The surprise is that now we've got a government that's being candid rather than trying to hide facts. Also, the acting deputy attorney general visited Chicago over the weekend to personally observe immigration enforcement operations. This is Emil Bove, who was in Chicago to personally observe the Department of Homeland Security immigration enforcement operations and support then federal agencies, the FBI, the ATF, as well as others. So there have been a lot of pushback on this. So Tom Homan had claimed that officials were reconsidering some of their moves. You remember this was last week that Holman had said they were reconsidering some of their moves in Chicago. And the reason for that was the news had gotten out. So the information was out. And so they didn't necessarily, they didn't want to be moving in as was being reported. They want to do it, but not as it was reported. In other words, they're hoping to catch people a little bit more unaware. Other big stories this morning. The AFC and the NFC championship games over the weekend. So let's start with the NFC. You had the Philadelphia Eagles dominating the Washington Commanders, ending the game with a 55-23 victory for the Philadelphia Eagles. Pretty decisive victory for them. And then let's take a look at the AFC championship game. You have the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Buffalo Bills with a final score of 32-29. That means the Chiefs will make their third consecutive Super Bowl appearance, but the game was not without its controversy. During the second quarter, Patrick Mahomes launched a deep pass to Xavier Worthy. Both Worthy and Bills safety Cole Bishop contested the ball, which appeared to make contact with the ground during the attempt. And then during this, the officials ruled it a completed catch. Additionally, called the holding penalty on the Bills defender. The head coach of the Bills challenged the ruling after the review of the call on the field was upheld. And there's a lot of controversy surrounding that, and a lot of reporting on that as well. There's a sad story from Ohio about a woman who died of hypothermia after taking her dog outside. A 43-year-old woman was found dead early Sunday morning after authorities had been called. Apparently, she had fallen and was injured. She was apparently, just based on the scene, authorities say she was struggling and crawling on the snow in the yard, trying to get up, and hypothermia set in, claiming the woman's life. Also, wanted to take a brief look at the top movies at the U.S. box office over the weekend. Flight Risk debuted at number 1. That's the film that was directed by Mel Gibson. It earned about $12 million. Mufasa the Lion King came in at number 2, and One of Them Days at number 3. And that's a look at the stories trending this morning in Belf's News Gallery. Clear skies in 19. Fox News Radio coming up. You're listening to the Greg Belfrage Show on Kello.
To the world, outer space, and
thank you, my
beyond.
friend, for letting me join you. Hope to see you again at 9:30 for the 4th hour. So until next time, take care. Have a great day.
Stop paying for green fees. Now is the time to purchase your 2025 Sioux Falls Golf Season Passes.